Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. This is episode 247 for your record books. My name's Aaron, and with me, as always, the other members of the Who Dat Jedi Council, Dave and Fredo. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hola.
And I don't know if Fredo did. I know Britt sent it to both of us. I don't know, Dave, if you've seen it. It's the meme. It's to Can't Touch This, but it's hello there, and it's every Obi-Wan take on hello there. So, and it's jammed in my head now. So
Perfection.
I've seen edits and shares of it. So it's one of those things where you go like, yeah, it worked. This is what the internet was built for.
Hello there.
This is exactly what this and cat memes. It's what the internet is built for.
So tonight's topic, we all did homework. We all watched the third season of Star Wars Visions, the anime Star Wars project, so we're going to give our thoughts on that, and got a little bit of news before that. But as always, let's do some trivia. Okay. So, to Dave, first of all, who becomes a, quote, far younger and more powerful, unquote, replacement for Darth Tyrannus? Oh, good Lord. Who becomes a, quote, far younger and more powerful, unquote, replacement for Darth Tyrannus?
It's a meatball down the middle of the plate for Dave to hit.
Pretty much.
Anakin Skywalker.
I'm not even going to look at the back. It is Anakin Skywalker. We're sure of it.
Yippee!
Was that Wizard Dave?
It was Wizard.
Well, Fredo, you get... It's not even a softball. This is a T-ball. You just, It's a... What did Lando lose, quote, fair and square? What did Lando lose, quote, fair and square?
That'll be the one and only Millennium Falcon.
It is. I'm not even looking at the back. And now watch.
Okay, so,
I'm gonna get...
The lowest. This has to be the hardest one.
It is. And it's always... I always take the first one I look at, so now I'm going to look at the questions, all right? Where on Naboo are Anakin and Padme when they surrender to their first romantic kiss? That's a vague question. Where on Naboo are Anakin and Padme when they surrendered to their first romantic kiss? Well, he's standing there looking out over the lake. They're at, was it her parents' house or something, maybe? I don't know. I'm giving a bunch of stuff. Hopefully the right answer is in there somewhere. But the lake country. I said lake. So
Yep.
I'm giving myself that one.
Yeah, no. I mean, again, this is part of the extended edition that never happened. That extra footage that got cut out by George, where Padme and Anakin go to Padme's family home on Naboo, and that's where he, commiserates about his feelings on sand and reaches over and kisses her. So we never get the name of it, but we all know where it's at.
So I don't know
before.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say real quick. I saw this video. This couple who went to Italy to the actual building where they filmed episode 1, the palace, and you have the right partner alongside you when the only thing you can do is quote Newt Gunray as you're touring this place. And I'm not gonna do it because it's inappropriate, but
Yeah. So I was going to, I was going to say, I added something to our possibility for future shows. And I say this because the Attack of the Clones would have some candidates. But worst acting moments in Star Wars.
I was going to suggest worst piece of dialogue, period. Because the sand line, that's up there, man.
I think we could have a couple show of worsts. I mean, there's, yeah. So I think there's, and there would be crossover on both of these, But sometimes you can't deliver a line really that's bad. You can't deliver it in a good way because Yeah. So
One of my favorite anecdotes was when Mark Hamill, he can just recite this dialogue by heart.
yeah.
This terrible dialogue from the first movie where it was just like he had to just regurgitate this stuff.
And it didn't even make it into the first movie. It was from his audition, yeah.
But we can't turn back. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aquilai or Solus, and what there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault.
Right, but it's seared into his brain, and he can just recite it from heart now.
Well, what was it? Harrison Ford said, "George, you can write this, but people can't say this." Yeah. And I'm censoring myself so you don't have to edit late at night tonight. So, yeah.
You can write this poodoo, but you can't say this poodoo.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, all right. Well, we're all significantly warmed up now. All right. So, let's see here. To the news.
All right. Let's start with, well, maybe a bit of sad news, but maybe a bit of realistic news. It was announced yesterday by StarWars.com. By the way, did you ever subscribe to Star Wars Insider?
I did.
Well, after more than 200 issues, Star Wars Insider will end its run in 2026.
Hey, by the way, sorry to interrupt you. I think we actually got an issue of Bantha Tracks at one point way back in the day. So...
Well, that's the thing. So they go about officially. Star Wars Insider was labeled that in 1994 as part of an evolution that began with the Lucasfilm Fan Club magazine, which back in the day before the internet was ubiquitous, the way you could tell you were part of a fan club was you signed up for it. And, they would send you magazines. Paper blogs print that you printed out on nice glossy paper. I feel like an old man right now. It's like if you ever see kids who remember Nintendo Power, this was similar. So, but they actually, so Star Wars goes through, but the earliest incarnation of this idea was in 1978 with the official Star Wars fan club. The newsletter was renamed Bantha Tracks, and then that went till March of '87. Which covered the new Star Tours ride, and then eventually they brought it back as Star Wars Insider, and given the realities of today's publishing, given the realities of today's media consumption, it's going away, and there's some nice quotes in the article about what it's meant for the people who put it together, all the effort. I mean, they have a nice banner where they go through everything from prequels, sequels, the re-releases, the Disney Plus stuff, the video games, all the aspects of that. So yeah, it's crazy to think.
I mean, yes, I like the magazine, but I mean, it was marketing, and it's cost prohibitive anymore. But I did want to digress because you mentioned Nintendo Power. So this is your fault for mentioning this. I have to ask Dave. How do you feel about Nintendo Power with them giving away how to beat games? Maybe we need to have the Nerd Cave Retro guys back on to ask this question, because I know that's how I think I ended up beating Mike Tyson, is because I read that issue of Nintendo Power and figured out how to survive. And I know that's how a lot of people beat like the original Mario Brothers, because it's a maze thing. So in level 8, but I don't know, how do you feel about that, them giving away the cheat codes?
Well, I think it was brilliant. We can talk about that whole life cycle of a video game back in the day, because they didn't have the ability to make these games any bigger than the size of a thumbtack. So the technology just wasn't there, so they had to make the games artificially difficult. Otherwise somebody would feel like they wasted $50 on a game that they beat in 10 hours or something. So they would inflate the difficulty of these games to make them borderline impossible to beat. But the brilliance in this is exactly what you talked about. It's like, well, we can get more money out of people if we tell them how to beat these games.
Well, and it started with like the Butterball Turkey hotline, where you would actually call some dude to like, I am playing, Metroid. How do I beat level whatever? And some dude on the phone would walk you through how to beat the game. So anyway,
yeah,
I
they had the hotline, the magazines,
didn't
the whole
want us
thing.
to go down too much of a rabbit hole here, but when Fredo brought that up, I was like, because I know you're huge into video games. I wonder if
You know what's interesting is to consider the games that you literally can't enjoy unless you have some sort of a guide. Because there are games that I would throw into that category. Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, like it's cryptic. There's no way to get through that game unless you know that you're supposed to get this item and kneel in this particular place and reveal a secret passage just through kneeling at a place that you would never know to kneel. And all the dialogue is mistranslated and there's just that game. I love that game. I have so many fond memories of playing that game. But if I tell anybody to play that game today, I say, don't play that without a guide. For the love of God.
All right, so this is
it's one of the.
This was good. No, like I said, I'm sorry, but Fredo mentioned Nintendo Power, so I just took it down a rabbit hole. But
and to that point, it's one of the things that a lot of these fan club magazines they filled a hole that was present in their fandoms that otherwise people wouldn't have. Because again, we're talking 80s and 90s before the ubiquitousness of the internet, which gave us everything from fan pages, message boards, social media, etc. The only way you were going to find how to beat Mike Tyson's Punch Out was by going to pick up somebody had a subscription to Nintendo Power.
And now you can go on a Reddit post and somebody will tell you how to.
You can Google it.
Right.
You can Google it.
And that's the thing. I will say that yes, I did subscribe for a time, and then I would just drop the subscription, just bought it every time we go to Barnes and Noble, something like that. I mean, the Star Wars Insider, that is. And that was, again, like you said, it's pre-internet, because that was where you saw the first pictures of them filming the prequels, and that's when you got wind of, hey, they're re-releasing the Kenner / Hasbro Star Wars toys, and it was like, and once a month, and it's like, oh my God, what is it? Now it's like you're just inundated with stuff. That's why, we get rumors and news and pictures all the time. And it's just, you become now kind of just like meh about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of special, but I understand why getting rid of it, it's cost prohibitive. We don't have a physical newspaper in this town anymore. That would put Dave on a soapbox right now, and we would all stand on this soapbox because, but it's like you got to meet people where they're at. So,
yeah. Again, the difficulty is it's difficult to compete in this world, in this market, when you're trying to generate buzz and excitement when stuff's already out. Like I said, but then I'll move on to the next bit of news because it actually dovetails right into that. So, Collider did an interview with Sean Levy, and they started talking to him about Starfighter. Okay, how are things coming? So, two things he says. First thing he says, for one thing, it is different in that it is an all-new, non-sequel, non-prequel adventure. It's new characters, it's a new timeline, it inherits legacy themes, but it's really trying to give Star Wars fans and movie audiences something fresh and new, and with a spirit of play and big-hearted adventure, with moments of real levity that A New Hope had in a revolutionary way. He then continues, says, we're really trying to sort of take that tone as North Star every day, that tone of A New Hope. So my crew is kind of central collaborator in the lead role. It's the dream come true. My 10-year-old self's on the set with me every day. So he's excited about it. There's no pressure to be derivative or limited by any obligation. Lucasfilm has been so encouraging of me doing this, something new. There's just a lot of love of what came before, end quote. So that's the kind of thing that would have been on Star Wars Insider 20 years ago. Now it's Collider goes and talks to him because he's doing an interview and he tells you what he's feeling about it as much as he can. about his project. So now you just get it the next day.
The other thing, this is taking us backwards instead of forwards a little bit, but like I feel like one thing that you briefly touched on that I just wanted to sort of like underline is this idea of community that Star Wars Insider built. And not to disparage, modern websites like Collider, because they have that, right? They're people that hang out in the comments and talk to each other and all that, right? But yeah, like that was a different time. That was we talk about the male loneliness epidemic, right? Like, what's the solution? It's like, well, let's get everyone a subscription to Star Wars Insider and kill two birds with one stone, because now you're connecting with other Star Wars fans, and you're saving this magazine from going out of print. But as far as Starfighter goes, I'm excited for it. I think, again, do something different. I'm all for that. Just because I'm in favor of a Ben Solo movie doesn't mean that I'm not in favor of unique projects as well. And this one sounds like it could be fun.
And it's something, not to step on Aaron, but particularly thinking about visions and what we saw with this season, sometimes you do need that sort of palate cleanser, something that's not, so tethered to lore, so tethered to what's come before, that you can just, here, we're going to go on an adventure, it's going to be fun. And I think in so many ways, even stuff like uh, Skeleton Crew. That's why it worked so well for me, because it was just you're following these characters, you go on an adventure, let's go, and later we'll figure out how it all connects. Whereas I was reading about the producers James Bond complaining how they're going to bring him back after the last movie blew him up, and I'm like, nobody cares about the lore of James Bond. Let's be fair. This is not a deep, cinematic universe where everything has to interconnect like that. Come on now. That is the pressure that a lot of producers and creative types in Hollywood feel like, oh my God, how's this all connect? It's like, no, if it's good, it won't matter if it connects or not. People will like it. Figure out how to make a good movie. Everything else will follow after. But so I'm hopeful that Sean Lee, with Sean Lee's words, that's the North Star, that they're going like, we want you to come in, sit down, and have as good an experience as you did when you saw A New Hope, and go from there.
Groovy.
I got on my soapbox last week about the Ben Solo stuff and how about they jump around in the timeline, and like that was a problem.
Mm.
And I will, if you want to get me fired up on this show, like that's the easiest way to do it. It's like, talk about the timeline again, Dave, and how they treat it in Disney, and where we're going next. Yeah, like I'll start throwing things, but for that reason, I like this approach. It's like it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter where in the timeline it falls. We want people that are coming fresh to this movie off the street, who are just saying, oh, there's a new Star Wars movie, I guess I'll go check it out, to just be able to just sit down and enjoy it without thinking, oh, I'm lost. I don't know.
But you know as well as I do, there's going to be the people who you're talking about people like us. Then there's going to be the other people who are like, where's Darth Vader? Where's the Mandalorian? How does this relate to? They're going to expect that because they've been trained, for that. So it's a double-edged sword.
They give them none of that, but they give them something that, I don't know, shocks and inspires. I don't know what that would be. We've seen a lot of cool stuff, but you give me something like crazy, and I'll totally forget about Darth Vader or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that was awesome. Yeah, let's high five and watch it again. I think I can pull it off, but I don't, again, it's not a layup. Like Ben Solo. Ben Solo is a layup.
By the way, I think that
Okay,
the
we're
people
now
that
we're now 3 episodes in of talking about Ben Solo. Can we drop this now? It's until something starts happening or there's new news. We get it.
speaking of new news, I was just gonna say, apparently that the public petition has crossed some sort of 5 million people threshold. So there you go. There's your news on the hunt for Ben Solo. For
There we go.
one. Moving right along, right quick. Have either of you seen the new Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein movie yet?
Haven't seen it yet.
It,
No.
it's on Netflix. By the way, I went to see it with a friend over at the Britannia Theater. They're doing the 35 millimeter roadshow version, which is really beautiful. If you want to see it in the theater, highly recommend it. Again, you have to like. First of all, there's a lot of drama there about it being an adaptation and how close it sticks to it or doesn't. There's some
Mhm.
changes because it's going to be, but it's really gothic, really good. I enjoyed it. Then again, I love Guillermo del Toro's movies, so well, the guy who plays Dr. Frankenstein, not Frankenstein is Oscar Isaac. So apparently, back a few weeks back, he was doing the normal interview rounds with people. He was talking to Variety about filming Frankenstein and the stuff. And apparently, this is during the Venice Film Festival. And so during that interview, Variety asked him about coming back to work for Disney. Now, they frame it as working, being back as Poe Dameron, because they make the point of saying, well, back in 2020, you said you'd only come back if you needed a new mansion. And he said, yeah, I kind of realized mighty quick that you can't say everything that comes into your head, because then it's out there forever and people will remember it long after you said it out loud and forgot about it. So anyway, and remember, it's not just Poe Dameron, it's also Moon Knight that he's worked with this. So they started asking him about it, and he goes, would you be interested about coming back? And he says, yeah, I'd be open to it, although right now, and okay, let me preface this. Right now for him was the time when the Jimmy Kimmel brouhaha was happening when ABC pulled Jimmy Kimmel off the air for certain comments. So he says, yeah, I'd be open to it. Although right now I'm not so open to working with Disney. But if they can kind of figure it out and, not succumb to fascism, that would be great. If that happens, then yeah, I'd be open to having a conversation about a galaxy far, far away or any number of other things. So, hey, he's interested in coming back if Disney can get his stuff together, but also, you know, we're talking about the hunt for Ben Solo, but then it's like you do have somebody here who you could bring back that's an easy get, and you don't have to explain how connected to the Force he is. It can just be General Poe Dameron, or if you want to bring him back for Moon Knight season 2 at some point, that'd be nice too. So.
To me, it sounds like he's already like starting to do something for one of the Star Wars movies coming up, and so it's a preemptive mea culpa. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any problem with that because I like Oscar Isaac. I think the Poe Dameron character was horribly underused. So
now, I'll say Finn and Poe in terms of misuse of characters.
But anyway, it just, like I said, the skeptic in me says it sounds like he's already got something in the work, and it's like, okay, I got to do a little bit of damage control. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought that. I mean, I know the reporter brought it up, but yeah. So anyway,
It's possible. I don't know. Thing with they always have to toe this line, right? Like walk the line between closing the door and not closing, and and not like saying, "Oh yeah, I'm begging for the opportunity to come back," because like again, it is a business. So like hypothetically, let's say he's caught wind that there's a new project in the works and that he could be invited back but hasn't yet for negotiation purposes, if he's not already locked in to some kind of a contract already.
Is he not doing anything with Doomsday? Is he not one of the? I mean,
Doomsday.
He might be. Like it's sort of. I don't know. I don't know if that one's been confirmed yet. Maybe it has.
Let me just take a look
Because
right quick.
he's Moon Knight,
Yeah.
Yep.
and you would think Moon Knight would be in it, but I can't recall off the top of my head if he is.
He's got a number of, I mean, he is involved in a number of projects. I mean, biggest kind of thing that he's got coming up is Miguel O'Hara in Beyond the Spider-Verse, which
Oh yeah.
allegedly we'll get 2 years from now, when everybody and their mama's been waiting for that sucker for half a decade. He is supposed to be, I don't know, Dave, he's cast as Solid Snake in the Metal Gear Solid movie. I
Oh,
don't know how I feel about that. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
a weird choice.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, Aaron, this might sell over your head. That's one of those games that's like it's a covert spy game that deals with so much goofy stuff because the creator is truly a video game auteur. But anyway, he's involved in that. He's got like 8 projects in total coming up, including TV. Like I said, beyond Spider-Man and other stuff. So
I don't
he's
have him
keeping
down for
himself
the
busy.
Avengers.
No, they do not.
Hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean he couldn't be involved in it. Doesn't mean he might be, uncredited, depending
Yeah.
on how it goes. So we'll see.
I wouldn't rule out literally anyone who's ever appeared in a Marvel movie,
Popping out of nowhere.
pre MCU or post MCU, being in the next 2 Avengers flicks, because they're gonna go all out.
Well-
But to your point, you were bringing that up because you think maybe he's busy.
I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
you have the Ray movie somewhere in the works. You have the talks of other things. I mean, it could very well be that he could, you put some makeup on him, and does he have anything to do in Starfighter? Even though as like a little cameo type of a thing, because he was the hottest
would make the
pilot
most
in the galaxy.
sense, right?
Yeah, and especially if it's like still have
Well,
this
that-
inkling of the something from Star Wars Resistance, that water planet that they were on, and he had a role in in that series. So I don't know, I'm grasping, there's possibilities, but I just find it interesting that this, like, that was really mean of me to say, and he didn't say, I don't need another mansion yet.
The other thing I kind of thought of that he'd be perfect for even if he's not starring in it, but kind of like a transition would be if you do bring Rogue Squadron to Disney Plus. Say he's the guy trying to create a new Rogue Squadron, and okay, kids, here you go, have fun being X-wing jockeys. I was the best ever. Here you go, kind of a thing. So you could always bring him into that. So anyway.
I like Oscar Isaac, so I would, and I'd love that. I love the character Poe Dameron too. Like I said, I wish there was more of him. So,
And again, go see Fire Frankenstein. It's good. You'll like it.
Cool. All right, is that it for the news? Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk Star Wars Visions. Yes. 9 episodes? All different studios, right? I mean, like I said, it was kind of funny. We started talking about this right off the bat, and I think, Dave, your question was, before we started recording, Dave, your question was, has my thoughts changed? Because I'm on the record, I'm not anti-Visions. It's just not my thing. It was, and I will be honest, it was like, okay, I really felt like I was doing homework. That being said, I went into this a little bit differently, though, because knowing that, okay, this isn't my thing, but I don't want it to be like pulling teeth, or anything like that. So, I started looking it through that lens of what I've said before. I've asked the question of, like, how do you know this is Star Wars? If somebody put it on, how do you know this is Star Wars? And so I started thinking about that through each of these episodes. I will say that helped me enjoy these episodes a lot more. There were let's just say there were some a lot better than others. But and we'll get to that in a little bit. But what it came down to, I think I figured out is that what tells me something is Star Wars is the soundscape. It's if it sounds like Star Wars from both a musical score and a sound effects type of thing. That's why I said, I had an issue with Force Awakens right off the bat because the blasters is different. It bothers me. But when you have those familiar sounds, then I felt like I was in a familiar place. And you can have other sounds, but you don't have to use all of the thing from the Ben Burt library. But when we have those familiar sounds, you feel like you're in a familiar place. And they use no John Williams music, but so many of them nailed the Star Wars sensibility from a score standpoint. Some didn't. Some took some risks and did some other things that I didn't like, but good on them. They're not out to make everybody happy. But like I said, that's what I think that was the common denominator for me. I mean, there was, you saw lightsabers, you saw a lot of lightsabers. You saw lightsabers, you saw stormtroopers, you saw ATSTs and things like that. And then one whole episode was on, in Mos Eisley, for crying out loud. The one with Teddy Ruxpin. It was
Teddy Ruxpin. I had the same comment.
The giant Teddy Ruxpin.
I went Teddy Bear Baymax.
It was giant Teddy Ruxpin, Osiris, and I think Hitler was working behind the cantina bar. That was my first reaction when he walked into the cantina, and the guy behind, I was like, dude, that looks like Hitler. But anyway, I digress. But it came down to the sounds, and so I was like, cool, so I put aside the fact that, like I said, I'm not a huge anime fan, but I put that stuff aside and just went, okay, so do I feel like this is Star Wars? Yeah. And then it went next to the story. And I will say, and then I'll let you guys talk a bunch here. Some of the stories were interesting and new. Some of them were kind of derivative. So it was, but I don't have any episode that I'm like, I want to watch that again. It was like, that's nice. But that might be me just, and where I am with the medium and everything like that. But that was the thing that was like, I will say the very first one, the duel, the Payback, I enjoyed that from top to bottom. The score, the story, the animation, I was like, wow, this is really flipping cool, so I really did dig that one. But then, like I said, there were some that just kind of got really derivative. It's like,
did you enjoy it because they had Ewoks?
That was kind of cute, I will say.
Well, that was one of my very first thoughts when you talked about the score at times being like really on point. Like there were these little motifs, like that they drew, like absolute. I mean, they were 100% trying to like call to mind the original Ewok march, with a couple of like small little motifs that they popped in there, and they did that basically, like you said, almost through all of these, with a couple of exceptions. But you'd hear like 2 or 3 notes, and you're, like a French horn, and you're
But again,
yeah.
I've said it a gazillion times. That's how you hook people like me, is that, okay, if the very first episode would have been the very last episode, Black, I wouldn't have watched the other 8. Even I would not have watched the other 8, because if you want to hook somebody into something new, again, you make them, just because there are stormtroopers in the night in Black, but you know what I mean? It's like, so we can take some big swings on the animation style, but you're hearing things that sound like Star Wars, and the music kind of feels like Star Wars, and so I got you comfortable. So then now we can show off our animation, and that's kind of the point of this, right? I mean, I don't think it's necessarily about the story per se. It's about a different medium to tell stories, and hopefully maybe open up a broader audience to anime. So I don't know. Those are my initial thoughts. Like I said, I will say that today when I watched Black, I was like, I don't know what I just saw. So anyway,
Fredo, what are your thoughts on Black?
Okay, yeah, because I saw that one as well, and I went. So okay, I will state for the record, I'm more versed with anime, Japanese animation than Aaron is. So when I saw it, the first thing that popped in my head was, oh, we're going the Robot Carnival route, which I'm sure neither one of you has seen. It's a all anime anthology from the late 80s, where you do pretty much the same idea of an anthology. This was a movie which had like 6 to 8 little mini shorts done by different studios, and the whole point is different stories will center about robots. One of them is very esoteric. So you get this kind of idea that Black presents, which is no dialogue, kind of forwards and backwards with time and putting in different perspectives, and it blends. And it almost feels like you're in a blender of colors and sounds or whatever. What I thought of it as I'm watching it is the first thing that popped in my head is remember that discussion we were having about all the blasters sounds at the end of Return of the Jedi? We were talking about how, hey, there's only one rebel on that Death Star, yet there's shooting going all around, and it's all the other people trying to escape. That's what I thought. At first, I thought, oh, we're getting put in the point of view of one of the um, stormtroopers, one of the countless stormtroopers who got injured in one of those events, like whether it's the Death Star explosion on Endor, or whether it's Star Killer Base, because towards the end it ends in this snowy planet with and the planet splitting up, much like Star Killer Base did. So a part of me was just thinking, is this just putting you in the point of view of one of these countless, faceless, endless minions that we know as a stormtrooper, and saying, hey, this is one of those beings that it's a living, breathing human being who, yeah, you just show, the hero shot him and off they went and they blew a thing and they celebrate, but this
Well,
guy also died. Kind of like the talking clerks about all the subcontractors that got blown up,
but
kind of a thing.
but here's my thing is that it's I mean it was like it felt like watching all of the previous 8. It was like we were listening, and I'm saying this because Black uses some like some heavy bebop jazz and some almost a little bit of free jazz, and so it's like
Free jazz,
if
yeah.
if we are listening to nothing but let's say we're listening to Miles Davis in his cool era, and we're listening to that all night long, then all of a sudden I put on some free jazz and some avant-garde, and I don't tell you that it's coming. It was like,
Yeah.
what the heck? Or like,
Yeah.
hey, we're going to go to the museum. Okay, we're going to the museum. I'm going to look at sculptures and paintings, and then it's like, the weirdest, stuff that's out there.
Turn a corner and you're in the Picasso exhibit.
It's no, even not. I didn't want to say worse, but even more bizarre. You know what I mean? It's so I was not expecting it, and so that's why. And it's only 13 minutes long, and I've, if there's anything that deserves a rewatch, it's probably that, just so I can just kind of figure it out, because I was sitting there going, okay, so I was with the 501st, I was in a St. Patrick's Day parade in Omaha, Nebraska, and I remember we're marching through, and this little old lady dressed green head to toe, she said, "What does this have to do with Irish?" That's the way I felt about, Black with, for the first about 8 minutes of it. It's like, what does this have to do with Star Wars? And again, I'm not saying that it is bad. I'm saying that was what I went through in the moment. It's like, so folks, if you haven't watched this, and if you're not as educated as Fredo is on anime, I mean, prepare yourself for, okay, each one is going to be a different ride, each one is going to be a different ride. So anyway.
No, and even if you are, I mean, it's very much like most of the other 8 uh, shorts episodes are very much, I would not quite say pop music, but they're very structured songs. They have a first verse, chorus, middle, or they have a beginning, middle, end, kind of a thing. Blackish by its design, that's why the connection exists to jazz. This is very freestyle. This is not interested in just telling this, less telling you a story, is more putting you in a
It
mood,
was it was
putting
like
you in
it was an art exhibit is what it was. That's
exactly,
exactly what it was. So we don't need to
exactly.
belabor Black. Let's. I
Yeah.
want to hear more about what you guys think about the entire series.
I
So
think
Okay.
I think it's instructive though, that particular one, because um, where I come down on this, and I think like I loved the use of that jazz in that episode, and the reason that I did, and the reason I responded really positively to it watching it, um, was because I've often felt that these um, sort of miniature uh, micro episodes, for lack of a better term, format of these anime inspired shorts are meant to all be sort of consumed together. And so you sit down with the very first one, and then you just watch them straight through, like you're watching chapters, or you're consuming an album. Um, and in that way, like, yeah, okay, it's just a departure, right? It'd be like if you listen to the whole of, um, I don't know, pick your favorite album, and then they threw in their experimental track at the very last track at the end of the record, and you were like, wait, what was
that's,
that?
I
Like,
mean,
what
that's
are we
fair.
doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Africa
Um,
in Total 4.
and so like, and in that level, we could debate like how effective all of it was together, right? But what what I loved about the music in that one was that it did call to mind uh, the notion that these are songs in and part of an album, and that you just sort of like, lack of a better analogy, like you put the record on the record player, you light up a joint, and you sit and you listen to the freaking record, um and by the end of it you're feeling pretty good, and you like decide, well, is it on to the next record, or do I listen to this one again, or do I move on to other pursuits? But um in that moment you're just sort of like sitting there in it, um and in that way I feel like how um it's a great reminder of the way that like I try to consume this show. So you can't be on your I mean, you can be on your phone and not paying attention. You can do that, but um I
Some you
think it's
could, some you could.
you're gonna
This one you could.
miss so much. You're gonna miss so much, and there's so much artistry on display. Um that, like, to me it just it is a reminder. It's very much like, oh, I need to put my phone, and I caught myself a couple of times like, well, let me check what's going on my phone, what's in my mail, and then I had to be like, oh, I need to put this down because I know that I just missed, you know 1,000 frames of awesomeness, and so, like, no, like, put this down, focus. um and it's kind of like, again, kind of like walking into an art museum or sitting down with a record. You try to carve out the distractions and just sort of give your attention to this thing. And it's very artistic, and so, like, that was sort of the point that I wanted to make with Black in particular. That one really sort of reinforced that
And
mindset for
again,
me.
I was not being negative
Yeah.
towards that at all. I was
Yeah.
just saying that it was like a total departure from all the
Everything
others.
else. Right.
And I was not expecting it, and it was like, wow, okay. So,
Oh, it was
I mean,
fun. I was watching
took
this
some
thing.
big
I
swings
was
in that one.
it was a huge swing. I was watching it with Harper, and just like just about every episode, she's like, "Oh, that was good. I like that. That was good. I like that." And we're watching this, and like, I don't know, 3 minutes in, she's like, "What's going on here?" I was like, well, you see, uh, the protagonist is hallucinating because the Death Star has been blown up, and it's like, I mean, maybe, probably. Um, I, I'm going based off the episode description a little bit with that, um, but honestly, kind of think that that's what you're seeing there. Like, this is where your mind goes. It goes in every direction all at once when you're dying, when you're getting blowed up. So I tried to like sort of convey that. Like, can you imagine how like sort of mind blowing that experience would be? And she's like, yeah, I think so. Um, so like maybe maybe the point's getting across there. I don't know.
Let me ask you this, Dave, just to start branching out into the others. How
Hmm.
did Harper react to the one that came before it, the Bird of Paradise short? The one with the Padawan who falls? Because it's very colorful, but that one's almost broken down less like an anime. That one feels more like a segment in a From Software video game where you have all these like title cards and it's all about again the internal journey as opposed to fighting the evil.
She was able to follow that very well, and
Mhm.
that's why I was able to actually point to that one when we were talking about Black, and say, you remember how in the last one a lot of that wasn't real. A lot of that was like in her head, or she was sort of experiencing it, but not actually seeing it. You didn't trust everything you were seeing. She's like, yeah, yeah, that's how that one was. And I was like, well, this is what's going on here as well. And so in that way, um, I was able to explain the following episode. So I guess in that way, dovetail into each other fairly well in that way. But
Mhm.
also, um, she didn't have trouble grasping the concepts at play there.
And I think that's one of the interesting aspects, kind of going back to Aaron's overall big question, which was, I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. I mean, some of the dual payback was really good. Some of the other ones were really good. Some kind of hit better because they all felt like a lot of them were hitting similar ground in terms of okay, you're existing in a place that's oppressed. You know, you're oppressed. And you're trying to fight back, or you're finding people who are downtrodden and being whether it's the empires, whether it's some smuggler, whether it's a slaver. You know, and here you have the opportunity to do the right thing or cash in and go take care of yourself. Uh, which those are universal themes, but it's interesting that they all kind of all came packaged this time out. I was surprised we didn't get a single chapter deal with pilots or X-wings or even TIE fighters. I'm almost like, given the huge uh, legacy that anime has with fighter pilots and mechas and just whether it's Robotech, Gundam, whatever you want to say, we didn't get anybody doing a short on X-wing pilots or TIE fighter pilots, or just even people piloting. This was all primarily the Force, Jedi, Sith, the light side, the dark side, and how you embrace being best version of yourself that you want to be, or how you fall into being the worst person, like in that dual one where you got the Grand Master who is quite Vaderish, for a Jedi Master. That he's got that really sinister smile that it's a mask, and I'm like that's like the inverse of Vader. It's like this guy's trying to look your friend, but he's not friendly, and you get that throughout the episode. So I found that interesting that this season, maybe more than anything, was leaning more into those. Okay, you lead it, the force and the choice between the light side and the dark.
There were also a lot of prosthetics,
Mm, yeah.
Mhm. Lots of people losing limbs.
or had lost. I mean, it made a big point of pointing out the prosthetics in this, and that was interesting to me when you talk about the thinking of it like an album, Dave.
Mhm.
I wonder what I don't know. It would, and nor I mean this would you could do a really big analysis project on this, because I think there are some connections there. But I thought that was another thing that really kicked me. However, I will say I'm getting a little tired of the um, oh my gosh, you're a Jedi story. That's getting a little, that's getting a little
It's leading into
that
those
drum been
tropes.
beaten.
Yeah.
That drum been beaten. It's like
Oh,
it's like
anime loves beating that drum. Loves it's the Ronin theme that emerges out of theater and traditional samurai movies. The idea of you get somebody who you didn't think was the ultimate badass, and showing that he is, which westerns kind of, funnily enough, also imitate around the same time as all those movies were making it in Japan. So, but yeah, you're right. It is kind of like, wow, you're a Jedi. I can't believe you're a Jedi. I wonder if you go back, how many times that phrase got uttered? How many times did you come away with it?
I picked up on the prosthetics as a motif as well. It feels like that's been a little more present since Book of Boba Fett. And you go back and you watch, there was a whole like subplot in that series about that and about people getting implants
I
and
mean, hell, you think about it. We haven't figured out why Saw Gerrera has robot legs. We still don't. I thought we were going to get that payoff in Andor, but we didn't. But
right.
there's
And it was
something there
because
that
of my,
obviously it was used for, symbolism in Return of the Jedi, you know, so that Luke sees he's very much like his father. The connections there, but
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, so what are you? That's not as obvious here. So what were they shooting for? But yeah,
I
Sure,
thought it was just because of his abuse of Rytonium.
there are probably a lot of interpretations and a lot of ideas that someone could throw against the wall um,
Mhm.
with all of that. But yeah, I picked up on that as well. And I think like anybody that watches this, if you haven't seen it yet and you're thinking about watching it, that's something to watch out for. Um, there's again, like you said, there's a lot of stories of Jedi and Sith, opposite sides of the coin, and really, when you talk about the prosthetics angle, like that was in our faces from the very first episode
hmm
because that Jedi, I was like, "Are you more machine? Or are you more man?" Um, and it was an interesting twist to have that shoe on the other foot, because we've seen that where if a Sith loses their humanity, and in this case, the Jedi lost his humanity, but it sort of manifested a little bit differently than it would with the Sith.
I'm sorry, you mentioned the Sith a couple times. I have to throw this out
Mhm.
here that I think that was one of the mistakes that George Lucas made by creating the quote rule of two, just with that
Mhm.
one line from Yoda, always two there are, a master and apprentice. Because what I found so interesting, I think Star Wars would be more interesting if there were more Sith around. Like that created some very interesting situations, some interesting storylines in these episodes when, and I mean, even if we can't call, in the Acolyte, we can't call the stranger a Sith because you know, he's not a Sith because of the rule of two. And so it's like, well, it seems like we stymied ourselves with that dumb
Mhm.
rule. You know what I mean? And we've
Yeah.
eliminated some, or devalued some really cool antagonists that we could have had.
Well, that's the beauty of a show like this is that they don't feel hamstrung in quite that same way. They feel like we have to follow the rule of two. They're like, oh, we can just tell fun stories, and I think like that's always my biggest takeaway from this show, and the reason that I would encourage people to check it out if they have any kind of openness to watching anime, um, rather than antagonism. It's that this is just sort of this proving ground. And we've talked about like when Star Wars chooses to branch out and do interesting things, they can try stuff and see if it kind of works. see if it sticks. What about this idea? What about that other idea? What about this kind of character? And experiment. And you get to see that begin to bear some fruit. And you think, okay, great. All right, we can go with that. You talked about that with the other animated series that we watched, the Lego series, where there was the dyad and like let's expand on that idea for a little while here, see where that takes us, and that could be something that pops into the movies at some point. And the same thing's going on here. There's tons of really interesting stuff that they're doing, and I think, oh, that was a well executed idea. That'd be an idea that we can use later on. And I think like that's one of the major strengths that the comic book apparatus has, that Star Wars doesn't, is that it has this encyclopedia of old content to draw from. And so when they decide we're going to tell a story that we've already told before, but we're going to incorporate elements from this other story or from over here, or oh, what about this character? We could pull them in as well because some of the themes are similar. And they just have all this huge pot of gumbo that they can just, we're going to throw in a little bit of okra. We're going to throw in some more protein over here, some more herbs, and you end up with something delicious eventually. And Star Wars does not have that advantage, or it at least traditionally has not. And so that's why I'm all for this kind of thing. Even if, like, again, not everybody reacts to everything in quite the same way. It's like, oh, that's not for me, or that's for so-and-so, that's not for me. Cool. So go find the thing that's for you and watch that, right? Instead, this should exist so that later on, when we're trying to create new stories, we have more to draw from. And like that's always been my take. I'm sorry, Fredo.
No. You're right. You're good to say. And I think it's interesting in this series. Well, first of all, the other thing I was thinking on top of my head was how many orphans and children who are abandoned are forced to go find their own way. It's like, man, again, and I get it. That's baked to Star Wars from day one. So, but it's amazing how often we
Or,
get
sorry,
those.
another one was, oh my goodness, they're making something float. They can use the Force. It's like, okay. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
exactly. But no, I find it interesting, not only because two of these nine chapters are sequels to stuff from the first season. One is the Duel, the other is the Ninth Jedi. So it makes me wonder if maybe, uh, and it could be. I mean, look, Lucasfilms obviously likes Visions being what it is, but I do wonder if maybe at some point they will like one of these studios to go, okay, maybe the Night Jedi studio just go, okay, give us a season of this. How can you animate a season of this? And we've given kind of morsels here and there, and we're looking to see how people react to these stories and these characters. And again, that opens up a new avenue of putting something on Disney Plus that you can't get anywhere else, or Star Wars, that doesn't cost you a lot, doesn't require a lot from your part, but if it succeeds and connects with audiences, well, boom, you got another intro. Um, it is, it is though, yeah. In some instances, I think the hardest part, and I don't want to belabor too much on Black or anything like that. It's just so much of this is playing with the toys. It's taking the interaction figures and meshing them in new and exciting ways, and that's part of the beauty of this project is that it is not beholden to the rules and the lore and the dynamics of the main shows or movies, whatever. You can go thousands of years in the past, thousands of years in the future. You can go sideways and backways and every which way, and it all works because if it connects with you emotionally, great. If you like it, if you think it's cool, great. And if it doesn't, well, don't worry about it. Here comes the next one. Just click over to the next episode, and that will, whatever issues you have with the last one go away. Kind of like Aaron, you never have to see it again. You just know it
Again,
exists.
it's they're all extremely artistic,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, like I said, I don't think there's really any of the storylines. I think the stories were all
Straightforward.
no. I think they were kind of almost, I don't want to say afterthought, but it was what that wasn't their primary focus. I think it was, okay, we have to have a story for some of these, so let's just do this, because I think it's again, like you said, it's about the art. So that's the way I look at it. I will say, the Bird of Paradise, I was going, that's got to be George Takei. That's got to be George Takei. It has to be. And I was like, and then when I got to the credits, I was like pausing. I was like, it's not. I was like, wait a minute, that's Japanese voice cast. And then I saw George Takei. I was like, yeah, so he's the Toad. But, you know, I dug that. I really did dig that episode. I felt I thought that episode, Bird of Paradise, took what Yoda went through in the Clone Wars when he was, when he was on Dagobah, I think the first time, and he was fighting his dark side self. That I felt this episode took that little, like, about 4-minute segment from Clone Wars and it expanded it out in a really interesting way. I did really dig that episode a lot. I'm sorry, I understand there's cultural significance to it and everything, but the giant Teddy Ruxpin just was like, when he took the turkey out of the microwave from his belly, that was kind of like, ugh, come on. So that episode kind of annoyed me.
But here's the question: did you not also at the same time think, man, I could have used a Teddy Ruxpin that can make a turkey in its belly, particularly as we approach Thanksgiving?
What?
Huh?
What did you say?
I was saying, did you not want the Teddy Ruxpin that could bake you a whole turkey ahead of Thanksgiving?
What? No.
He doesn't want that at
The
all.
thought didn't remotely come into my brain, Fredo. No, I was just like, why is there a giant teddy bear on Tatooine? Oh, wait a minute. He just pulled a turkey out of the microwave from his belly. I was just like, I mean, old man Aaron kicked in at that point. Yeah.
I wanted to shout out, well, they're all gorgeous, right? The one that I kind of was surprised by was the Lost Ones, because I wouldn't say that I like wrote it off halfway through, but I was kind of thinking in terms of that this particular animation is not for me. And then you get introduced to the spin on the throne room, which so imaginative and creative and well realized and fabulous. And I was just like almost slack-jawed watching those sequences that took place in that throne room. And I was like, oh, this is cool. This is really, really, really cool. That was a moment that kind of like caught myself like, whoa. There's several moments like that in this. If you're open to it, if you're watching it and you're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to try to appreciate some of the art at minimum, you're going to see some crazy good art in this.
I was going to say, so yeah, The Lost Ones, which is a sequel to The Village Bride from season 1, I believe. But also the fight animation, that they do a great job in that one of giving you very kinetic, very strong action animation for that one. And that one was a good one for that. The Bounty Hunters was good for another great kind of duel, again, fight for that. Also, talking animation styles, I'll mention right quick Song of Four Wings, which I love if for nothing else because they were borrowing that 70s or maybe even 50s, 60s Buck Rogers style. Like the animation style, like the princess, her outfit, that just screams Padme Amidala, which is all inspired by Flash Gordon. And I'm always like, I love it when you do those little touches where you're like, okay, not only are you pulling from Star Wars, but you're pulling from the stuff that influenced Star Wars in order to make your stuff. And I'm like, I enjoy that because that tells me you're actually leaning into all of the stuff that Star Wars leans into.
I was getting like Mega Man, Astro Boy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's fun.
it was.
But I will, to my original thesis, I will say there were a couple, I can't remember which episodes there were, but a couple episodes where they didn't have the Star Wars soundscape. They didn't have the blaster sounded different. The doors opened with a different sound. Things, just little things like that. That's when I struggled more to say, okay, is this an actual Star Wars thing? That, like I said, that was kind of just the thing I was going through. Like, does it feel, Star Wars? Because the story maybe didn't as much either. So, yeah, it just, like I said, this is a tangent, but it's like that's what's important to me with Star Wars is that continuity of does it,
Which I appreciate in the bounty hunters when they use the seismic charge and they used the sound.
yeah, no, that was cool.
The
Yeah,
And I'm like, okay, because the moment they release it, I'm like, oh, they're going to do the sound. They're going to do the sound. And then it was like, thank you. I appreciate that. Because you're
like
right. That is,
like how Dank Farrik is now like a big that is the global swear word for Star Wars now. Thank you
mm,
to the Mandalorian because that was used a couple times.
mhm. That and what's the other one? Bantha,
At the
was
Buddha,
it, was it Bantha Poodoo that they used?
I didn't hear that one, and
I thought that
something
was,
like that. Yeah.
so no, like I said, it was fine. I'm not, but again, if it's a Sunday afternoon where I'm like, there's nothing on TV, I want to watch something. It's probably not for me, not going to be Visions, but I think everybody should experience it just because it's fantastic artwork. I think there's some really creative stuff. Um, but like we've always talked about, you have to check your expectations at the door. You can't be the little old lady in the St. Patrick's Day parade saying, "What does this have to do with Irish?" It's it's a mashup, right? It's Star Wars infused art, you know. Um, and if you go with that, you're going to enjoy yourself. And just know that black gets really weird.
by design. That's one thing I'll say. Whether you like it or whether you don't, and look, everybody's opinions will differ. And I'm not saying you do or you don't. I'm saying the one good thing you'll say is somebody had put thought into that, put thought into what they wanted to say, into the animation, to the music, the
Hmm.
soundscape. This was not by accident. I think a lot of times, particularly with a lot of whether it's movies, TVs, whether it's film, you can kind of stumble into stuff. With animation, you very rarely stumble into stuff because you're spending a lot of time drawing, designing, coloring, editing. You know what you want to put up there. So, what it's interesting that's what they went with. And even as the fact that it's the last of these chapters, the fact that they went, this is what we're going to leave people off with. It's an interesting choice.
Dave, final thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I would echo that the craftsmanship is undeniable. It's worth watching on that basis alone. If you have any sort of appreciation for good craftsmanship, I mean, okay, yeah, sit down and watch it. Like if you're a fan of whatever it is, right? I'm a fan of good architecture or good music or good art or good whatever. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like that. You're sitting there and you're just appreciating um, the work that went into this thing, and it's kind of a frame of mind that you sort of have to bring into something like this. Again, it's like akin to going into an art museum
Mm-hmm.
or sitting down with an album. It's like, okay, I'm going to give this my attention, and it's all the distractions are going to be put away for a little while, and I'm just going to sort of give myself over to this thing, and we'll see how much I get out of it in return, and mileage will vary for everybody, but I think it's worthwhile. I think it's worth sitting there and watching.
Helpful tip: turn on the subtitles because when the Rodian speaks, the subtitles come up in Japanese. Unless you're fluent in Japanese, you won't know what the Rodian, you won't know what he's saying. So, but the subtitles will help you out. So yeah.
Wonder which one's harder to learn, Rhodian or Japanese.
So,
Oof.
Cool. Yeah. Well, it was a fun project. So, right on. So I guess with that, we will say who dat.
Who dat?
Who dat?
Everybody have a fantastic week.
McClunky.